I want to tell you about someone I know. She finished at the top of her class. She spent 3 full months researching how to start an online business, read books, took paid courses, filled notebooks front to back. By month 4, she had a 47-page business plan. She never launched. She is now on month 19, still researching, still preparing. And here is the strangest part. She is not lazy. She is not stupid. She might be the most capable person I have ever met, which is exactly why she is stuck. Because what is keeping her is not a lack of intelligence. It is a specific way that intelligence gets turned against you. If you have ever researched something for weeks without starting, or felt like you almost understood enough to begin, or watched someone less qualified than you move ahead faster, this video is going to be uncomfortable because the trap I am about to describe is not a character flaw, it is a feature. Something your brain does specifically because you are smart, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. For the first 20 years of your life, you were trained inside a very specific system. Clear rules, study hard, answer correctly, avoid mistakes, get rewarded. And if you were smart, if you caught on quickly, remembered well, tested high, that system loved you back. Teachers praised you, parents were proud, grades proved you were doing it right, so your brain did what all brains do. It identified the pattern that led to success, and locked it in. Work harder, no more, be certain before you move. And then the real world started, and something felt wrong. Because the rules had completely changed, and nobody warned you. School rewarded being right before you acted. The real world rewards acting before you are certain. The school punished mistakes. The real world uses mistakes as the primary teaching material. The school said, learn everything, then begin. The real world says, begin, then you will actually learn. And here is the brutal part. The smarter you were in school, the more deeply those old rules are wired in. Which means the people who struggled, sometimes they adapt faster because they never trusted the system in the first place. But the high achievers, the ones who were the system, they carry those rules into a world where the rules no longer apply. And that is where the trap begins, not in one place, but in 5 very specific ways. Each one feels completely reasonable. Each one quietly costs you years. The first trap looks like productivity. That is what makes it so dangerous. Smart people do not sit around doing nothing. They research, they plan, they analyze, they prepare. Here is the neurological reason this happens. When a smart person encounters a problem, their brain does not see one path forward, it sees 10. And that ability to spot complexity, it releases dopamine. It feels like progress. Your brain is rewarding you for thinking. So you think more, and your brain rewards you again. You are now in a dopamine loop, a loop that has nothing to do with actual forward movement. Meanwhile, the person with fewer perceived options, they start. Not because they are braver, not because they know more, but because they could not see all the ways it might fail, so they walked forward. And here is what nobody tells you about that messy, imperfect start. It generates real data, real feedback, information that no amount of planning can simulate. 6 months after starting, that person is not just ahead of where they began, they are ahead of where you are. And the gap does not close, because while you keep preparing, they keep iterating. Here is the test. Think of something you have been almost ready to start for more than 3 months. If you had started on day 1 instead of day 90, where would you be right now? That gap between where you are and where you could be, that is what overthinking costs. Not in theory, in real time, in real compounding. And this trap is just the first layer, because underneath the thinking addiction is something deeper, something that thinking is actually protecting. I want to ask you something. When did someone first call you smart? Probably young, a teacher, a parent, a relative, and it felt good. Of course it did. Being seen as capable is one of the best feelings available. But here is what that moment quietly did. It did not just describe you, it defined you. You did not just learn that you were smart, you became the smart one. And once that is your identity, the rules of your life quietly change, because the smart one does not fail publicly. The smart one does not try things they might be bad at. The smart one does not look confused. So what happens when the real world puts you in front of something you are not yet good at? Learning sales, starting from zero, looking like a beginner. Smart people do not avoid this because they are arrogant. They avoid it because being bad at something feels like a threat, not to their bank account, to their identity. Because if you fail at this, what does that mean about who you are? So the brain protects the identity, the only way it knows how. It keeps you away from situations where you might be wrong. Now here is the counterintuitive part. The people who move fastest in the real world, they almost universally describe themselves as not the smartest person in the room. That is not false modesty, that is identity architecture. When being smart is not your core identity, being bad at something for a while costs you nothing. It is just the learning phase. You go through it, get better, and move on. But when being smart is your identity, every beginner phase feels like a personal collapse. And so you avoid it, and so you stay still. Real confidence, the kind that actually creates wealth, does not come from always being right. It comes from knowing you can survive being wrong, and the only way to know that is to be wrong, survive it, and keep going. Here is something uncomfortable. You are watching this video right now, and the fact that you are watching it does not move you one single dollar forward. Only what you do after watching it does. I am telling you this because the third trap is one that the entire internet is actively selling you. The content era has created a new kind of poverty. Information poverty is gone. Information is free and infinite. But there is a new poverty that has replaced it, execution poverty. Smart people are better than almost everyone at consuming and retaining information, which means they are disproportionately susceptible to this trap. They can watch a 3-hour masterclass on investing, understand it completely, explain it better than most people, and still have zero investments. Because understanding and doing are two completely different neurological acts. Understanding feels like progress, doing feels like risk. And the brain will almost always choose the thing that feels like progress without the accompanying risk. Smart people call this due diligence. Often, it is a sophisticated avoidance mechanism. The fix is not to stop learning. The fix is to change the ratio. For every hour of learning, there needs to be an hour of attempting, ugly attempting, imperfection attempting. Attempting that generates feedback you could not have read about anywhere. Because the gap between people who succeed and people who do not isn't the gap between what they know, it is the gap between what they attempt. Which brings us to the trap nobody talks about, because this one does not happen at the beginning, it happens after you have already started. Let me describe a different person. This one is not overthinking, they are moving, working hard, getting better every week. And they are almost certainly heading in the wrong direction. Because this trap does not affect people who have not started, it affects people who are working hard inside the wrong system. Here is the economic reality most people are never taught: not all effort is equal. Some systems reward your effort linearly. You work 1 hour, you get paid for 1 hour. You stop, the income stops. Other systems have leverage. One action produces results 10, 100, 1,000 times its input. A smart person working hard inside a linear system will always lose to a less skilled person working inside a leverage system. This is not unfair, it is just math. Smart people fall into this in a specific way. Because they are good at improving things, they keep improving. Their craft gets sharper, their process cleaner, their results better. They become exceptional at something that cannot scale. And here is the question they never ask, not how do I do this better, but should I even be doing this at all? The businesses that create real wealth have one thing in common, something that keeps working after you stop working. Content, products, systems, teams, tools. The smartest move a smart person can make is to stop optimizing their performance inside a system and start choosing which system they are inside of. Because the ceiling of any linear system is fixed, and no amount of intelligence gets you above it. Now we have covered 4 traps, but I have saved the deepest one for last. Because this one does not look like a trap at all, it looks exactly like wisdom. Let me describe what fear looks like inside a smart person's mind. It does not look like fear, it looks like a spreadsheet. Smart people do not say I am scared, they say, the market timing is not right, I need to understand the tax implications better, I should wait until I have more savings behind me, it would be irresponsible to start without a clearer plan. Every single one of those statements can be completely true and completely a lie at the same time. Because the brain is extraordinarily good at building logical cases for things it wants emotionally. And what does it want? Safety, certainty, the absence of judgment, the preservation of the identity we talked about earlier. This is where intelligence becomes a liability in a way no other trait can match. A less analytical person feels fear and says, I am scared, then they either act or they do not. But a highly intelligent person feels fear and says, let me build a comprehensive argument for why now is not the right time. And they are good at it. The argument is airtight, the reasoning is sound, it convinces other people, it convinces themselves. And years go by. And the market timing is still not right, the plan is still not clear enough. Here is the diagnostic question. Think about something you have been delaying and ask yourself honestly, am I gathering information that will actually change my decision, or am I gathering information to feel safer about a decision I have already made? Those are 2 completely different activities. One is due diligence, the other is anxiety management dressed in a suit. And only you know which one you are doing. The risks smart people imagine are almost always larger than the risks that actually exist, but the cost of waiting, that is always larger than they imagine. Because time is the only resource that does not come back. And every month spent in almost ready mode is a month of feedback you did not get, a month of adjustment that did not happen, a month of compounding that did not start. Here is the root of all 5 traps. Smart people were taught that outcomes are determined before action. Think correctly, act correctly, get the right result. But wealth runs on a completely different logic. Act, get a result, think about that result, adjust, act again. The loop does not start with thinking, the loop starts with acting. If you believe outcomes are determined before action, you will wait forever, because that guarantee never comes. But if you believe outcomes are determined through action, then thinking is just something you do briefly before attempting. And the attempt is where the real work begins. The practical shift is this. Stop asking, do I know enough to begin? Start asking, what is the smallest version of this I can attempt today? Not the full plan, not the perfect version, the smallest attempt that would generate real information. The woman from the beginning, 47-page plan, 19 months, I told her to spend 2 hours building 1 page of a website, not the whole thing, 1 page. She launched it in that session. It was messy. 3 people visited. One of them sent her a message asking about her service. She told me later. That one message taught me more about my customer than all 19 months of research. 19 months. 1 conversation. The information was never in the books. It was always in the attempt. So here is the only question that matters right now. And I want you to actually answer this. Put it in the comments. What is the one thing you have been almost ready to start for longer than 3 months? Because that thing is not waiting for more information. It is waiting for you to decide that starting imperfectly is better than preparing indefinitely. The moment you decide that, the trap is already half broken. The other half breaks when you start.